In the unforgiving social season of 1889, Ella Vance was a ghost. They didn't just ignore her, they looked right through her. Her own family called her the beige mouse, plain, dull, and destined for spinsterhood. But history is written by the victors, and the London elite made a fatal mistake. They assumed her silence was stupidity. They didn't know that the most powerful man in England, the Duke of Blackwood, was watching. And they certainly didn't expect that the plain girl in the corner was about to orchestrate the biggest scandal of the decade. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the true, brutal story of how the unwanted wallflower brought high society to its knees. The rain in London didn't wash away the grime. It merely made the cobblestones of Mayfair slick and treacherous. It was October 14th, 1889, a Tuesday that felt much like every other Tuesday in the life of Miss Ella Vance. Ella sat in the draughty library of Vance Manor, the smell of old paper and damp wool clinging to her. At 22 years old, Ella had mastered the art of disappearing. She wore a dress of indeterminate grey, a fabric so washed out it seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. Across the desk sat her aunt, Lady Catherine Vance, a woman whose corset was laced as tightly as her purse strings. "The butcher has sent another letter, Ella," Lady Catherine snapped, tossing a crumpled paper onto the mahogany desk. "He threatens to stop credit. Handle it." Ella didn't look up. Her pen scratched rhythmically against the ledger. "I have already handled it, Aunt. I sold the silver candelabras from the East Wing this morning. The butcher is paid, as is the modiste for Cousin Isabel's new ball gown." Lady Catherine sniffed, unimpressed. "Good. At least you are useful for something. Heaven knows you won't marry your way out of this poverty." Ella's hand paused for a fraction of a second, then resumed writing. This was the narrative of her life. Her father had died 3 years ago, leaving the estate in ruin and Ella under the guardianship of her uncle's widow, Catherine. Catherine had one goal: to marry her own daughter, Isabel, to a title. Ella was merely the housekeeper, the accountant, and the punching bag, kept around only because she understood the complex web of debts that kept the roof over their heads. "Isabel must look perfect for the Blackwood ball," Catherine continued, pacing the floor. "They say the Duke has finally returned from the continent. He is cold, they say, cruel. But he is the richest man in England. If Isabel catches his eye, our troubles are over." "The Duke of Blackwood," Ella murmured. "Jasper Thorne." "Don't speak his name with such familiarity," Catherine scolded. "He is a predator. He will eat a girl like you alive. But Isabel, she has beauty. Men forgive a lack of wit when the face is fair." The door burst open, and Isabel Vance swirled in. She was a vision in peach silk, blonde curls bouncing, cheeks flushed with the arrogance of the adored. "Mama, the ribbons are all wrong," Isabel whined, ignoring Ella entirely. "Ella, fix them, now." Ella stood up, her knees popping slightly. She walked over to her cousin, her grey dress blending into the shadows of the room. As she retied the silk ribbons on Isabel's expensive gown, she caught her own reflection in the mirror. Pale features, straight, mousy brown hair pulled back severely to hide its natural wave. Eyes that were an intelligent shade of hazel, hidden behind the fact that she rarely made eye contact. She looked exactly as they said, plain, dull. "Make it tighter," Isabel commanded. "I want to barely be able to breathe. The Duke must see my waist is the smallest in the room." "Breathing is generally considered useful for conversation," Ella said dryly. Isabel laughed, a harsh, tinkling sound. "Oh, Ella, no one wants to talk to a woman at a ball. That's why you'll never understand. You'll be in the corner holding the shawls, as usual." Ella tightened the ribbon with a sharp tug, making Isabel gasp. There! Perfect! That night, the carriage ride to Blackwood House was silent, save for the rain drumming on the roof. Lady Catherine and Isabel took up the main bench, their skirts spreading like peacock tails. Ella sat on the small, rear-facing jump seat, clutching a bag containing Isabel's smelling salts, spare hairpins, and a fan. She wasn't going to the ball to dance. She was going as a chaperone, a prop to ensure Isabel's virtue while she hunted for a husband. As the carriage pulled up to the massive iron gates of Blackwood House, Ella felt a strange chill. The estate was imposing, lit by 1,000 gas lamps that fought back the London fog. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress. "Remember," Lady Catherine hissed as the footman opened the door. "Stay out of the way, Ella. Don't embarrass us." "I wouldn't dream of it," Ella whispered. She stepped out into the night, invisible as always, but as she looked up at the stone gargoyles guarding the entrance, she felt a sudden, rebellious thought. "Let them look at the peach silk. I see the cracks in the stone." The ballroom of Blackwood House was a sensory assault. The air was thick with the scent of hothouse lilies, beeswax, and desperation. 300 of London's elite were packed into the space, a sea of diamonds and velvet. Ella found her designated spot quickly, a velvet settee positioned behind a large potted palm in the corner. It was the unofficial wallflower pen, where the chaperones and unwanted daughter sat, sipping lukewarm punch and judging the dancers. Isabel was already on the floor, dancing a quadrille with a minor viscount. Lady Catherine was prowling the perimeter, hunting for the Duke. Ella took a small, leather-bound notebook from her pocket. It was her one secret vice. In it, she didn't write poetry or diary entries. She wrote observations, brutal, honest, and often hilarious critiques of the society that shunned her. "Lord Hemsley's toupee is listing to the left," she wrote. "If he spins any faster, it shall achieve flight and land in the punch bowl." She allowed herself a tiny, imperceptible smile. "You find something amusing about the architecture, or are you plotting a murder?" The voice was deep, smooth, and dangerously close. Ella froze. She looked up. Standing beside the potted palm, hidden from the main floor by the foliage, was a man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in severe black evening wear that made the colourful peacocks on the dance floor look ridiculous. His hair was dark, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and his eyes were the colour of a stormy sea, grey and turbulent. He was holding a crystal glass of scotch, not champagne. He looked bored, lethally bored. Ella realised with a jolt who he was. Jasper Thorne, the Duke of Blackwood, the host of this very party, hiding behind a plant. She snapped her notebook shut. "I was calculating the structural integrity of Lord Hemsley's hairpiece, Your Grace." The Duke blinked. He looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time. He saw the grey dress, the severe hair, the lack of jewellery. He saw a woman who should have been trembling. Instead, he saw amusement. A slow, crooked grin spread across his face. It transformed him from a statue into a man. "And? What is the verdict?" "Unstable," Ella said, her voice steady. "One vigorous waltz, and it's a casualty of war." Jasper let out a short, shocked laugh. "My God! Someone in this room with a brain! I thought I was going to suffocate." "You are hiding," Ella observed. "I am engaging in a tactical retreat," he corrected, taking a sip of his drink. "Do you know how many mothers have shoved their daughters in my path in the last hour? 12. One of them actually, accidentally, spilled wine on me just to touch my lapel." "Hazard of the trade, I suppose," Ella said, turning her gaze back to the dancers. "You possess the title and the fortune. They possess the debt and the ambition. It is merely a transaction." Jasper stepped closer. The scent of sandalwood and tobacco surrounded him. "You are cynical for a wallflower." "I am realistic," Ella replied. "People call me plain, Your Grace. When you are plain, you become invisible. And when you are invisible, you see everything." "And what do you see when you look at me?" Jasper asked softly. The playfulness was gone, replaced by an intense curiosity. Ella looked at him. She didn't see the Duke. She saw a man who was tired of being used. "I see a man who is lonely in a room of 300 people," she said simply, "and a man who would rather be anywhere else." Silence stretched between them. It wasn't awkward, it was electric. Suddenly the music stopped. The crowd parted. Lady Catherine had spotted the Duke. She was dragging Isabel through the crowd, a shark scenting blood. "Your Grace!" Lady Catherine's voice was shrill. "There you are. I must introduce you to my daughter Isabel. She has been dying to thank you for the magnificent decor." Jasper's face hardened. The mask of the cold aristocrat slammed back into place. He looked at Lady Catherine, then at the preening Isabel, and finally he looked back at Ella, sitting in the shadows in her grey wool. He made a decision. A reckless, insane decision. "Lady Catherine," Jasper said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "Your daughter is charming, I am sure, but I am currently indisposed." He turned to Ella and extended a gloved hand. "Miss." He paused. "Vance," Ella whispered, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Ella Vance." "Miss Vance," Jasper said, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "I believe you promised me this waltz." A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. Isabel's mouth fell open. Lady Catherine looked as if she had been slapped. Ella stared at his hand. Taking it would be social suicide. It would make her a target. It would make her family hate her even more. "I did no such thing," she hissed under her breath. "Dance with me," Jasper murmured, his eyes locking onto hers with intensity. "Save me from them. Please." Ella looked at the sharks circling him. Then she looked at her aunt's furious purple face. She placed her hand in his. "Very well." As he pulled her out from behind the palm tree and onto the center of the ballroom floor, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. The plain, dull Ella Vance was suddenly the center of the universe. Jasper placed his hand on her waist, a firm, warm touch that burned through the cheap fabric of her dress. The orchestra began a waltz. "Head up, Ella," he whispered. "If you're going to walk through fire, you might as well enjoy the heat." They began to move, and to the shock of everyone, especially Ella, they moved perfectly together. She wasn't clumsy. She knew the steps. She had just never been asked to use them. "Why?" she asked him as they spun. "Why me? You could have anyone." "I don't want anyone," Jasper said, spinning her close. "I need a wife, Ella. My father's will demands it by my 30th birthday, which is in 2 months. If I don't marry, the estate goes into a trust managed by my cousin, a man who would gamble Blackwood away in a week." Ella stumbled slightly. He caught her. "A marriage of convenience?" she asked. "A business arrangement," he corrected. "I need a wife who isn't interested in my money, who is intelligent enough to run a household, and who won't bore me to death. You just analyzed a toupee with the precision of a structural engineer. You are perfect." "You know nothing about me." "I know you see the truth," he said. "And right now, I am offering you an escape. Marry me, and you will never have to bow to that shrew of an aunt again. You will be the Duchess of Blackwood. Untouchable." The music swelled. Ella looked over Jasper's shoulder. She saw Isabel glaring with pure hatred. She saw the society matrons whispering behind their fans, already tearing her apart. If she said no, she went back to the grey dress and the ledger books. If she said yes, she entered a war zone. But looking into Jasper's stormy eyes, she realized something. He wasn't just offering a title, he was offering a partnership. The song ended. They stood in the center of the room, chest to chest. "Well?" Jasper asked, his voice low. "Will you be the plain spinster Ella Vance, or will you be my Duchess?" Ella raised her chin. For the first time in her life, she didn't look down. "I have a few conditions," she said. Jasper smiled, and it was a genuine, dangerous thing. "I would expect nothing less." The scandal did not wait for the morning papers. It travelled by whisper faster than a telegram. By the time Ella returned to Vance Manor that night, the silence in the carriage was heavier than a funeral shroud. Lady Catherine did not speak until they were inside the foyer. She turned, her face a mask of twisted fury, and struck Ella across the cheek. The sound echoed off the peeling wallpaper. "You ungrateful, conniving little witch," Catherine hissed, her chest heaving. "You bewitched him? You must have. A man like the Duke of Blackwood doesn't look at the likes of you unless he is drunk or mad." Ella touched her stinging cheek. Her hand didn't tremble. The fear she used to feel for this woman had evaporated the moment Jasper Thorne spun her around the ballroom. "He was neither drunk nor mad, Aunt," Ella said calmly. "He was merely bored of the options you presented." Isabel burst into tears, throwing herself onto the chaise lounge. "She ruined it. She ruined my life. I was supposed to be the Duchess. Everyone was looking at her. It was humiliating." "Go to your room," Catherine spat at Ella. "We will discuss your punishment in the morning. You will write a letter of apology to the Duke, stating you were unwell and delirious. You will withdraw whatever spell you cast." "I cannot," Ella said. "He is coming for tea tomorrow at 11, to discuss the betrothal settlements." Catherine went pale. He is coming here." "Yes, and I suggest we have the good biscuits. The Duke is particular." The following morning, Vance Manor was in a state of panic. Dust was swept under rugs, and fresh flowers were stolen from the neighbour's garden. At precisely 11 o'clock, a black carriage with the Blackwood crest, a wolf rampant, pulled into the drive. Jasper Thorne stepped out, looking devastatingly handsome in a grey morning coat. He did not look at the house with judgment. He looked at it like a general surveying a battlefield he had already won. When he entered the drawing room, Lady Catherine curtsied so low she nearly toppled over. "Your Grace, this is such an unexpected honour. My niece, she is—" "Your niece," Jasper interrupted, his voice like crushed velvet, "is the future Duchess of Blackwood. I trust she has been treated with the respect that title commands." He looked at Ella. He saw the faint red mark on her cheek where Catherine had struck her. His eyes darkened, the temperature in the room dropping 10 degrees. "Ella," he said, holding out his hand. "Shall we walk in the garden? I find the air in here stifling." Once they were outside, walking along the overgrown path, Jasper stopped. He reached out and gently grazed her cheek with his gloved thumb. "Who did this?" he asked softly. The rage in his voice was terrifyingly controlled. "Does it matter?" Ella asked, stepping back. "It won't happen again. Not if we sign this contract. You have your conditions ready?" "I do." Ella pulled a folded piece of paper from her sleeve. "First, I will not be a silent partner. I will manage the household accounts. I've seen your estate's public records. Your overseers are stealing from you. I will stop it." Jasper raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Agreed." "Next. Second, I require a personal allowance that is mine alone, to be used without your oversight." And third, she hesitated. We sleep in separate rooms. I know this is a transaction to secure your inheritance, Jasper. I will not pretend there is affection where there is none. I will play the part of the Duchess in public, but in private, I belong to myself. Jasper looked at her for a long moment. The wind ruffled his dark hair. He looked almost disappointed, though the expression vanished quickly. Agreed, he said, on one condition of my own. And that is, you must trust me. My family, they are not like yours. Yours are cruel because they are desperate. Mine are cruel because they enjoy it. Specifically, my cousin Silas. He wants the estate. He wants me dead. When you enter Blackwood House, you are entering a snake pit. You cannot keep secrets from me, Ella. If we are divided, they will eat us alive. Ella looked into his grey eyes. She saw the seriousness there. This wasn't a game to him. It was survival. I can do that, she said. Then it is settled, Jasper said. He pulled a ring from his pocket. It wasn't a delicate diamond. It was a massive sapphire, dark as the ocean, surrounded by sharp, old-cut diamonds. It looked heavy. It looked like a weapon. He slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Welcome to the war, Ella. The wedding was a blur. It was held 3 weeks later in a private ceremony, much to the horror of the London tabloids. There was no grand breakfast, no parade, just a quick exchange of vows in a cold cathedral, and then Ella Vance, now Her Grace, the Duchess of Blackwood, was whisked away to her new home. Blackwood House was even more imposing in the daylight. It was a sprawling Gothic revival mansion in the countryside of Derbyshire, miles from civilization. The stone was dark, the windows tall and narrow. As the carriage arrived, the servants were lined up on the steps. There were over 50 of them. They will test you, Jasper murmured, as the footman opened the door. The housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers, has been here since I was a boy. She was loyal to my father, and she adored my cousin Silas. She will not like you. I don't need her to like me, Ella said, smoothing her travelling dress. I need her to obey me. Jasper grinned. That's the spirit. The introduction was icy. Mrs. Danvers was a severe woman in black silk, with eyes like beads of obsidian. She looked Ella up and down, noting the simple cut of her dress, her lack of classic beauty. Your Grace, Mrs. Danvers said, her tone bordering on insolence. We did not expect the master to marry so hastily. We have not prepared the mistress' suite. You will be in the blue room. The blue room was a guest room. It was a slight. Ella didn't blink. That will be fine for tonight, Mrs. Danvers. Tomorrow you will have the mistress' suite prepared, and bring the household ledgers to the library within the hour. I wish to review the weekly expenses. Mrs. Danvers bristled. The ledgers are handled by Mr. Silas, Your Grace, as they have been for years. Mr. Silas is not the Duchess, Ella said, her voice ringing clear in the grand foyer. I am. The ledgers. 1 hour. She walked past the woman without waiting for a response. That evening, dinner was a battlefield. The dining room was a cavernous hall with a table long enough to seat 30. Ella and Jasper sat at opposite ends, candles flickering between them. But they were not alone. The doors swung open, and a man strolled in. He looked like a twisted reflection of Jasper, fair-haired where Jasper was dark, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Cousin!" the man boomed. "And the new bride! I had to come and see the little mouse who captured the wolf." "Silas," Jasper said, his grip tightening on his wine glass. "I didn't know you were in Derbyshire. I have rooms here, remember?" Silas pulled out a chair right next to Ella, invading her personal space. He smelled of brandy and rot. He turned to Ella, his eyes raking over her. "So, this is the creature. Plain as paper. just as the papers said. Tell me, my dear, did you drug his wine? Or is he just desperate to keep the money out of my hands? Ella slowly cut a piece of her pheasant. She didn't look at Silas. You are sitting on my dress, Mr. Thorne, she said quietly. Silas laughed. She speaks. And what will you do about it? You are a guest here, really. Jasper will tire of you in a month. Then you'll be back in the gutter. Jasper started to stand, his face thunderous, but Ella held up a hand. She turned to Silas. She looked him dead in the eye. Mr. Thorne, I spent this afternoon reviewing the kitchen accounts. I noticed that for the past 5 years, the estate has been paying for repairs to a cottage on the northern border. A cottage that, according to the land deeds, burned down 4 years ago. The payments, however, go to a private bank account in London under your name. Silas's smirk faltered. That is administrative error. It is embezzlement, Ella corrected. I have already drafted a letter to the family solicitors. Unless, of course, you plan to leave Derbyshire tonight and not return until invited. The room went silent. The servants in the shadows held their breath. Silas stared at her. The plain, dull girl had just put a knife to his throat using nothing but paper. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You will regret this, he snarled at Jasper. She is a liability. She is my wife, Jasper said, raising his glass, and she appears to be better at math than you. Silas stormed out. When the door slammed shut, Jasper looked down the long table at Ella. For the first time, there was a heat in his gaze that had nothing to do with the contract. You found that in one afternoon? He asked. I am very good at finding things people want to hide, Ella said. I think, Jasper said, standing up and walking the length of the table to her, that I have severely underestimated you, Ella. He stopped beside her chair. He reached down and took her hand, bringing it to his lips. He kissed her knuckles, lingering for a moment too long. The blue room is draughty, he murmured. If you get cold, my door is down the hall. Ella's heart skipped a beat. The contract, Jasper. To hell with the contract, he whispered. But before anything could happen, the doors opened again. It was the butler, looking pale. Your Grace, he stammered. A telegram. From London. Jasper took the paper. His face went grey as he read it. What is it? Ella asked, standing up. It's the Queen, Jasper said, his voice hollow. She has heard of the marriage. She demands our presence at the winter court at Windsor. She wants to meet the woman who tamed the Duke of Blackwood. That doesn't sound so bad, Ella said. You don't understand. Jasper crumpled the paper. The Queen didn't send this. It was sent by her adviser, Lord Hemsley. The man with the toupee? The man who is Silas's father-in-law, Jasper said grimly. They aren't inviting us to a party, Ella. They are inviting us to a trial. They are going to try to prove the marriage is a sham to annul it and give the estate to Silas. Ella looked at the crumpled paper. The piece of the countryside was over. They were going back to the lions. Then we shall have to be very convincing, Ella said, her voice steel. Tell the carriage to be ready at dawn. Windsor Castle in winter was not a fairy tale. It was a frozen fortress of grey stone and biting winds. The carriage ride from Derbyshire had taken 2 grueling days, and by the time Ella and Jasper arrived, the snow was falling thick and fast, blanketing the grounds in a deceptive silence. They were not greeted by the Queen, they were greeted by Lord Hemsley. The man with the listing toupee was no longer comical. In the stark light of the royal antechamber, he looked predatory. He bowed, but his eyes remained fixed on Ella's face with a look of smug anticipation. Your Graces, Hemsley purred. Her Majesty is delighted you could make the journey on such short notice. although rumours abound that you nearly didn't come. Trouble in paradise already? The only trouble, Hemsley, Jasper said, his voice cutting through the air, is the draught in this hallway. It smells of desperation. Hemsley's smile didn't waver. We have prepared the east wing for you. A single suite, naturally. We wouldn't want to keep the newlyweds apart. Ella felt Jasper stiffen beside her. A single suite meant one bed. It was a test. If they requested separate rooms, Hemsley would have proof that the marriage was a sham, a business arrangement to secure the inheritance. Perfect, Ella said, stepping forward and linking her arm through Jasper's. She squeezed his forearm, a silent signal to play along. My husband and I find it impossible to sleep apart. The nights are so cold after all. Hemsley's eyes narrowed. Indeed. Dinner is at 8. The Queen will be watching. The suite was opulent, draped in red velvet and gold leaf, dominated by a massive 4-poster bed. As soon as the footman left and the heavy oak doors clicked shut, Jasper paced to the window, staring out at the snowy courtyard. They are watching us, he said, his voice tight. The servants here are paid by Hemsley. Every word we say, every move we make. If they find out we haven't consummated the marriage, they will annul it on grounds of non-fulfillment. Silas gets the money. I get the ruin. Ella began unpinning her hat, her hands shaking slightly. Then we must give a performance worthy of the stage. It's not just a performance, Ella. Jasper turned to her, his expression tortured. Do you know why Hemsley hates me? My father exposed Hemsley's investments in the opium trade 10 years ago. He wants to destroy the Blackwood line. He will come for you to get to me. He will try to humiliate you tonight. Let him try, Ella said softly. She walked over to him and placed a hand on his chest. Under the fine wool of his coat, his heart was hammering. I am not the frightened girl in the grey dress anymore, Jasper. I am the Duchess of Blackwood, and I protect what is mine. Jasper looked down at her. The air in the room shifted. The contract felt miles away. Am I yours, Ella? For the duration of this agreement, she whispered, though her heart wanted to say forever. The royal dinner was a gauntlet. 50 nobles sat at a long table, with Queen Victoria herself at the head. She was elderly, dressed in mourning black, her face unreadable. Hemsley sat to her right, whispering in her ear. Ella sat beside Jasper, acutely aware of the eyes boring into her. She wore a gown of deep emerald green, a colour Jasper had chosen. It brought out the fire in her hazel eyes. She didn't look plain tonight. She looked dangerous. Halfway through the soup course, Hemsley struck. Tell us, Your Grace, Hemsley called out, silencing the table. It is quite the Cinderella story, is it not? A month ago you were, what was it? A housekeeper for your aunt? Counting coppers to pay the butcher? A titter of laughter ran through the room. Jasper's hand clenched around his silverware, his knuckles white. Ella placed a calming hand over his. She turned her gaze to Hemsley. She didn't blink. It is true, Lord Hemsley, Ella said, her voice clear and melodious. I managed my aunt's estate. It taught me a great deal about value. I learned that some things, like honor and loyalty, are priceless, and other things... She let her gaze drift meaningfully to Hemsley's expensive, gaudy diamond stickpin, and then up to his wig. Are merely cheap imitations trying to pass as the real thing. The table went deathly silent. Someone gasped. The Queen stopped eating. She looked at Hemsley, who had turned a mottled shade of red, and then she looked at Ella. A small, crinkled smile appeared on the monarch's face. The Duchess speaks with wit, the Queen said, a rare quality in this court. Lord Hemsley, You would do well to remember that diamonds are formed under pressure. Hemsley shrank back in his seat. Ella had won. Later that night, back in the suite, the adrenaline crashed. They were alone. The fire roared in the hearth, but the tension was suffocating. There was only the one bed. "You were magnificent," Jasper said, loosening his tie. He looked exhausted. "I have never seen anyone silence him like that." "He is a bully," Ella said, turning her back to him to unbutton her dress. "Bullies are easy to defeat if you don't fear them. And you don't fear anything." "I fear losing," she admitted. She struggled with the middle button of her gown. It was stuck. "Allow me," Jasper murmured. He was suddenly behind her. His hands brushed her skin, sending shivers down her spine. He undid the buttons slowly, one by one, exposing the nape of her neck. He didn't step away when the task was done. He pressed a kiss to her shoulder. Soft, tentative. Ella turned around, clutching the dress to her chest. "Jasper, the contract." "The contract was for a business arrangement," Jasper said, his voice rough. "But I don't want a business partner, Ella. I want my wife." He cupped her face. "They think you are plain. They are blind. You are the most captivating woman I have ever known." He kissed her. It wasn't the polite peck of a wedding day. It was hungry, desperate, and filled with weeks of suppressed longing. Ella dropped the dress. The contract dissolved in the heat of the firelight. That night, they did not sleep apart. And for the first time, Ella Vance felt truly, completely seen. The victory at Windsor was absolute. The Queen had given her blessing, Hemsley was disgraced, and the annulment was off the table. Jasper and Ella returned to Blackwood House, not as allies, but as lovers. The winter thawed into spring. For 2 months, life was perfect. Jasper was attentive, laughing more than he ever had. Ella took charge of the estate, correcting the accounts, firing corrupt overseers, and earning the grudging respect of the tenants. Even Mrs. Danvers had gone silent, retreating to the shadows. But happiness in a Gothic novel is rarely left unpunished. It was a rainy Tuesday in April when the carriage arrived. Ella was in the garden, tending to the roses, when she saw the familiar, dreaded figure of her Aunt Catherine stepping onto the driveway. But Catherine was not alone. Silas was with her. Ella's blood ran cold. She rushed inside, mud staining her boots. She found them in the library. Jasper was standing behind his desk, his face pale, holding a small, leather-bound book. Her notebook. The one she had written in the night they met. The one she had used to vent her frustrations about the aristocracy, about men, about the transactional nature of marriage. She had thought it lost during the move. "Jasper," Ella said, breathless. "What is this?" Silas was leaning against the mantelpiece, looking triumphant. "Just doing my familial duty, cousin. Lady Catherine here came to me with a troubling discovery. It seems her niece left some personal effects behind." Very illuminating reading. Jasper looked up. His eyes, usually warm of late, were back to the stormy grey of their first meeting. But now, there was no curiosity, only betrayal. "Is this your handwriting?" Jasper asked, his voice dead. "Yes, but—" "Read it," Silas goaded. "Read the entry dated October 14th, the night of the ball." Jasper read aloud, his voice shaking. "The Duke is a target, nothing more. He is a bored, arrogant fool, looking for a distraction. If I play the part of the intellectual equal, he will fall. It is a transaction. I provide the heir. He provides the fortune to save Vance Manor. I feel nothing for him but pity." Jasper slammed the book shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "Jasper, listen to me," Ella pleaded, stepping forward. "I wrote that before I knew you. Before we danced. I was angry at the world. I was repeating what my aunt told me to think." "Did you?" Jasper asked. "Because here, 2 weeks after the wedding, you wrote, 'He is easily manipulated by flattery. The control of the estate is nearly mine.'" Ella gasped. "I never wrote that. That is a lie. I stopped writing in that book the day we married." "The handwriting matches, Ella," Jasper roared, throwing the book onto the desk. "Don't insult my intelligence. You played me. God, you played me perfectly. The plain girl who wanted nothing. The one person I thought saw me." "I do see you," Ella cried, tears spilling over. "I love you." "You love the lifestyle," Lady Catherine piped up, smoothing her skirts. "You always were a good liar, Ella, just like your father." "Get out," Jasper whispered. He turned his back to her. "Jasper, please! I said get out!" He spun around, his eyes wild with pain. "Get out of my house. I cannot annul the marriage. You've made sure of that. But I will not live with a spy. You will go to the dower house, on the edge of the estate. You will live there, on a stipend, and you will never set foot in this manor again." "Silas forged those later entries," Ella screamed, pointing at the smiling man. "Can't you see? He stole the book." "Silas has been in London for 2 months, Jasper said coldly. "And Mrs. Danvers found this book in your vanity drawer this morning. It hasn't left the house." Ella looked at Mrs. Danvers, who was standing in the doorway. The housekeeper gave a tiny, satisfied smirk. It was a coup, a perfectly executed coup. Ella looked at Jasper's back. She saw the tension in his shoulders. He was broken. He believed the narrative of his life, that everyone wanted him only for his money, had been proven true once again. She wiped her tears. Dignity. She had to have dignity. "You are the smartest man I know, Jasper," she said, her voice trembling. "But you are also a fool. You are letting the wolf into the henhouse because you are too busy biting the hand that feeds you." She turned and walked out. She didn't pack a bag. She walked out of the front door into the pouring rain and began the 3-mile trudge to the dower house. The dower house was a crumbling stone cottage, damp and cold. For 2 weeks, Ella lived like a ghost. She had no servants, only a small allowance that arrived by courier. She spent her days staring at the rain, replaying the scene. How had they done it? How had they forged her handwriting so perfectly? She was burning old papers in the grate to stay warm when she saw it. A stack of old letters left by the previous occupant of the dower house, Jasper's mother, the Dowager Duchess, who had died 5 years ago. Ella picked up a letter at random, intending to use it for kindling, but the handwriting stopped her. It was spidery, frantic. "My dear son," it read, "I fear Silas. He asks too many questions about the steeplechase accident that killed your father. I believe he knows about the loosening of the saddle girth. If anything happens to me, look in the hollow beneath the loose stone in the chapel floor. I have hidden the stablemaster's confession there." Ella froze. The letter was never sent. It had been hidden in a recipe book. Silas hadn't just embezzled money. He had murdered the old duke, and Jasper's mother had known. Ella realized why Silas was so desperate to get Jasper's estate. It wasn't just greed, it was fear. If Jasper ever looked too closely at the past, Silas would hang. Ella stood up. The fire in the grate was nothing compared to the fire in her belly. Jasper hated her. He had exiled her, but he was in mortal danger. Silas was in the house, and now that Ella was out of the way, Jasper was the only thing standing between Silas and the title. "He thinks I am plain," Ella whispered to the empty room. "He thinks I am weak." She grabbed her cloak. She wasn't going to wait to be rescued. She was going to break back into Blackwood House. The rain was torrential, a curtain of silver needles that lashed against the stone walls of Blackwood House. It was the kind of weather that drowned out footsteps, which was exactly what Ella needed. She did not enter through the front door. She knew the house better than the masters did now. She knew the coal chute in the scullery led to the wine cellar, and the wine cellar had a dumbwaiter that opened into the serving pantry on the ground floor. Ella Vance, the Duchess of Blackwood, crawled through the coal dust. Her cloak was ruined, her face smeared with soot. She looked nothing like a lady. She looked like a creature born of the shadows. She emerged in the pantry, heart pounding against her ribs. The house was silent, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. It was 2 a.m. She moved in her stocking feet, avoiding the floorboards she knew would creak. Her destination was the private family chapel in the east wing. The chapel was freezing. Moonlight filtered through the stained glass, casting eerie-coloured pools on the flagstones. Ella fell to her knees near the altar, frantically searching for the loose stone mentioned in the dowager's letter. There. A stone beneath the statue of St. George looked slightly uneven. Ella pried at it with her fingernails, breaking 2 of them until the stone shifted. She lifted it aside. In the hollow beneath lay a small, oilskin-wrapped packet. Her hands trembling, she unwrapped it. Inside was a confession, signed by the former stablemaster, detailing how Silas Thorne had paid him £50 to cut the girth strap on the old Duke's saddle. It was dated 5 years ago. "I knew you would come back." The voice came from the shadows of the confessional booth. Ella scrambled to her feet, clutching the packet to her chest. Mrs. Danvers stepped into the moonlight. She held a heavy brass candlestick in her hand. Her face was twisted into a grimace of pure malice. "You are like a cockroach, Your Grace," Danvers spat. "Hard to kill." "You helped him," Ella whispered, backing away toward the altar. "You helped Silas kill the Duke. Why? You served this family for 30 years. "I served Silas," Danvers hissed. "He was the only one who treated me like a person, not a piece of furniture. He promised me a cottage by the sea. He promised me rest. And you little accountant, you were going to ruin it all with your ledgers and your questions." "Get out of my way, Danvers," Ella warned, her voice low. "I have the proof. Silas will hang. Silas is currently upstairs." Danvers smiled, a chilling sight. "Giving his cousin a sleeping draught? The Duke has been feeling poorly all evening. Stomach pains. Very tragic. By morning, he will have passed in his sleep. Heart failure, the doctor will say." Ella's blood turned to ice. "He's poisoning him." "Arsenic is slow, usually," Danvers said, advancing. "But Silas was impatient. He gave him a massive dose tonight. You are too late. And you—" She raised the candlestick. "You are a burglar who broke in and fell down the stairs." Danvers swung the heavy brass weapon. Ella didn't scream. She didn't cower. She remembered the weeks of physical labor in the garden. She remembered the years of dodging her aunt's blows. She ducked under the swing, the candlestick whooshing over her head. As Danvers overbalanced, Ella shoved her with all her might. The housekeeper stumbled back, her heel catching on the edge of the altar step. She fell backward, her head cracking sickeningly against the stone font. Mrs. Danvers crumpled to the floor and lay still. Ella didn't check to see if she was alive. She turned and ran. She ran out of the chapel, through the great hall, and up the grand staircase. Her lungs burned. "Please don't be dead. Please, Jasper, don't be dead." The door to the master suite was locked. Ella didn't hesitate. She took a running start and slammed her shoulder into the wood right near the latch. The lock, old and decorative, gave way with a splintering crash. She burst into the room. The fire was dying in the grate. Jasper lay on the bed, his skin the color of parchment, sweat beading on his forehead. He was gasping for air. Standing over him, holding a pillow, was Silas. Silas spun around, shock registering on his handsome face. He saw Ella, covered in soot, bleeding from her hands, looking like a vengeful fury. "You!" Silas snarled. "You really are a pest." "Get away from him!" Ella screamed. She pulled a small pistol from her pocket, the very one Jasper kept in his desk drawer downstairs, which she had grabbed on her way up. Silas laughed, though his eyes darted to the gun. "You won't shoot. You don't have the nerve." "I have nothing left to lose, Silas," Ella said, cocking the hammer. Her hand was rock steady. "Step away from the bed." Silas raised his hands slowly, backing toward the window. "He's already dead, Ella. Look at him. He can barely breathe. You're the widow now. We could make a deal, you know. I could comfort you in your grief." "Ella." Jasper's voice was a weak croak. He tried to lift his head. "Ella, you came back." "I never left you," she choked out, keeping the gun trained on Silas. "Jasper, don't drink anything else. He poisoned you, and he killed your father." "Lies," Silas shouted, his composure cracking. "I have the confession," Ella yelled, patting the pocket of her dress with her free hand. "The stablemaster's confession. Mrs. Danvers is unconscious in the chapel. It's over, Silas." Silas's face transformed. The mask of the gentleman fell away, revealing the cornered rat beneath. He looked at the window, then at Ella. He realized he couldn't talk his way out of a written confession. He roared and lunged, not at Ella, but at the fireplace poker. Ella fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed room. Silas screamed, clutching his shoulder. The force of the bullet spun him around, and he crashed into the vanity table, shattering the mirror. He slid to the floor, moaning, blood seeping through his fingers. Ella rushed to the bed, dropping the gun. She grabbed the pitcher of water on the nightstand, smelling it first to ensure it wasn't tainted, and supported Jasper's head. "Drink," she commanded. "Dilute it. We need to get the doctor. Now." Jasper looked up at her. His vision was blurring, but he saw her clearly. The soot on her face, the fire in her eyes. He wheezed. "You shot him." "I aimed for his leg," Ella admitted, wiping his brow with her sleeve. "I'm a terrible shot. I hit his shoulder." Jasper let out a weak, raspy laugh that turned into a cough. "Remind me never to make you angry again." Servants were running down the hall now, alerted by the gunshot. The door burst open again. The butler stood there, eyes wide. "Get the doctor," Ella commanded, her voice ringing with the authority of a duchess. "And get the constable. Mr. Thorne has had an accident." It took 3 weeks for the poison to leave Jasper's system. For 3 weeks, Ella did not leave his bedside. She slept in the chair, ate only when forced, and watched him like a hawk. When the fever finally broke and Jasper woke up with a clear mind, the first thing he saw was Ella reading a ledger by the window. "You fired the gardener," he rasped. Ella jumped. She dropped the ledger and rushed to him. "Jasper, you're awake." "I've been awake for an hour," he smiled weakly. "I was listening to you mutter about the price of fertilizer." "You fired the gardener." "He was overcharging us for hydrangeas," Ella said, tears pricking her eyes. "And I didn't like his attitude." Jasper reached out a hand. "Come here." Ella sat on the edge of the bed. She felt suddenly shy. The adrenaline was gone, and now the reality of their separation hung between them. "I am so sorry," Jasper said, his voice thick with emotion. "I read the notebook again. The real entries. The ink was different. The style was different. I was a jealous, blind fool. I let my insecurity about being wanted for my money cloud my judgment of the one person who actually loved me. You were poisoned, Ella said softly, and you were betrayed by your own family. It is hard to trust when the world teaches you to suspect everyone. I don't want to suspect you, Jasper said. He squeezed her hand. I want to worship you. You saved my life, Ella. You saved my legacy. You are the formidable woman in England. I am just plain, Ella, she teased. You are anything but plain, he replied, pulling her down for a kiss. The trial of Silas Thorne was the scandal of the century, the stablemaster's confession, combined with the testimony of a very bitter Mrs. Danvers, who turned on Silas the moment she realized he wasn't coming to save her, sealed his fate. Silas was hanged at Newgate Prison 3 months later. Mrs. Danvers was sentenced to life in a penal colony, but the karma did not stop there. Lady Catherine Vance and Isabel arrived at Blackwood House a week after Jasper's recovery, dressed in their finest, pretending they had no knowledge of the plot. They expected to be welcomed back, to smooth things over. Ella met them at the gates. She didn't even let them out of the carriage. Aunt Catherine, Ella said, standing tall in a dress of deep blue velvet. I have purchased the debt on Vance Manor. Catherine's eyes widened. You what? I bought your debts, Ella explained calmly, which means I now own Vance Manor, and since I have no desire to be a landlord to tenants who steal diaries and spread lies, I am evicting you. You can't, Isabel shrieked. We are family. Family protects each other, Ella said cold. You sold me. Now I am selling the house. I have arranged for a small cottage in the Hebrides for you. It is very remote, very quiet. The sheep are excellent listeners. Perhaps they will enjoy your stories. The Hebrides? Catherine gasped. It rains there constantly. Then I suggest you learn to knit, Ella said. She signalled the footman. Close the gate. As the carriage rolled away, carrying her screaming relatives to a life of obscurity and sheep farming, Ella felt a hand on her waist. Jasper stood behind her, looking healthy and strong. That was ruthless, he murmured admiringly. It was necessary, Ella corrected. She leaned back against him. Are you ready for the ball tonight? Another ball? Jasper groaned. Must we? We must, Ella smiled, turning to face him. Everyone wants to see the plain and dull Duchess. It would be rude to disappoint them. Let them look, Jasper said, kissing her forehead. They will never know that the most beautiful thing in the room is the mind of the woman in my arms. They walked back toward the house, a fortress no longer, but a home. Ella Vance had won the war. She had secured the love, the fortune, and the future, and she had done it without ever changing who she was. History would not remember her as the beige mouse. It would remember her as the Iron Duchess, and that is the incredible true story of Ella Vance. She proved that in a world obsessed with appearances, intelligence and courage are the only diamonds that truly matter. She didn't just marry a duke, she saved him, and in doing so, she saved herself. If you enjoyed this story of hard karma, betrayal, and romance, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What do you think? Was Ella's punishment for her aunt too harsh, or exactly what she deserved? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss the next scandal. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.